Good morning. This is Senate Judiciary. We're meeting this morning regarding the appointment of Daniel Richardson of Burlington as a Superior Court judge. And as is our practice, we will ask Judge Zone to introduce Mr. Richardson to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
For the record, Tom Zone, Chief Superior Judge, and it is my pleasure to introduce Dan Richardson to the committee today. I know you, as you pointed out, Senator Sears, you are familiar with him. Dan is a graduate of Vermont Law School, Ohio Wesleyan University, and most recently, he's been the city attorney for the city of Burlington. Prior to that, he's been engaged in a significantly varied and wide practice across the state and federally. In different types of civil litigation, as well as other areas of litigation. His application that you've received copies of shows that he is someone who understands what public service is, whether it's community boards, whether it's serving as president of the Vermont Bar Association. He's been someone who has taken an active and engaged role in working, whether it was in Ohio or here in Vermont, to make the areas that he's involved in a better place. As far as Dan's concerned, one thing that really struck me of his application was that he is someone who recognized the fingerprints that his mother had placed upon the core of who he is. And I think, especially with this weekend being Mother's Day, it struck me that when you look back at Dan and you see the influence of his mom, it seems to have really gone through everything in his life. He pointed out that his mother was someone who taught him about being charitable, who taught him open-mindedness, to be intellectually curious, and to have humor and humility. And when you look at the things that Dan has done in his career, both personally and professionally, they are interwoven with each of the endeavors he's embarked upon, including he's an Eagle Scout, which is, as we know, quite an accomplishment. And I was struck by the fact that his mom's recommendation as an Eagle Scout indicated that he was okay, that he didn't do all his chores, and that he fought too much with his brother. But when you look at what Dan's done over the course of his career, it appears as though he has changed. He has exceeded okay in everything that he has done. He has been exceptional in all of his endeavors. He gets the work done. And I don't have any information about whether he fights with his brother, but we hope that that has stopped many years ago. It is my pleasure. And one other thing to point out about Dan, if you look at his application closely, you pick up that he also, in addition to having a brilliant legal mind, has a green thumb. And he's quite familiar with agronomy and horticulture. So it is my pleasure to introduce in the Green Mountain State someone, again, with a green thumb, Dan Richardson.
Good morning.
Nice.
Thank you, Judge, for that welcoming remark for Mr. Richardson. Frankly, many of us were taken by surprise at the speed with which the governor appointed Mr. Richardson. Maybe it was a long process for you, Dan, but for us, it took us somewhat by surprise. And because you were appointed so close to the end of the legislative session, we think it's important that we confirm you so there's no question about, or not confirmed, so that there's no question about whether your position as a Superior Court judge is official. So with that in mind, welcome. And do you have any opening remarks you'd like to make to the committee? And by the way, Senator Baruth is not here this morning. He is in a conference committee on the budget.
Understood. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And thank you, Judge Zone, for those very generous introductory words. I just have a short introduction, which is that I am very grateful to be before you for this position, and I will share the chair's feeling that this has moved quickly. Certainly the application process is a very slow process that tends to appear and disappear on one's life horizon. But this process has moved forward, and I greatly appreciate the committee's willingness to have this hearing and to move my nomination forward and confirmation in these waning days. I know you have many other tasks before you. I will just simply add that, I can represent that I will endeavor to the greatest extent possible, if confirmed by this committee and by the Senate, to serve the state of Vermont to the greatest extent of my ability, and that I look forward very much. This is a lifelong, if not career-long, goal that I have had, and it is something that I truly am very appreciative to have this opportunity to sit for you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator White has a comment or question.
Well, I guess it's more of a comment. So one of the questions that's asked in judicial nominating is if you have changed your mind about when you've heard testimony and information. And I quite honestly cannot remember the answer that was given there, but I will say that I was in Senate Government Operations. I was very impressed when, Dan, when you came in and testified around the Montpelier City Charter change, and your and whether you agreed with the outcome or not, your comment, I mean, whether any of us did, your comments were that you opposed it when it was first proposed, that you said non-citizen voting? No, I don't think so. But after taking testimony and listening and reading and studying, you changed your mind and became an advocate for us and for it. And I thought that was spoke well of your ability to deal with issues and change your mind. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the example I would have pulled up if you had asked that question, because it was precisely that kind of question that I think a sort of initial response was, this didn't seemed at odds or alien to the way I had always conceived of this concept. But once you dig into the history, the constitutionality, the statutory language, you start to realize, oh, there's this other world. And that's, I think, a role of a judge oftentimes, is to get into the substance of these issues and start to try and get at the right answer. And that's certainly something I'm excited to be doing on a full-time and professional level, if confirmed.
Thank you. I will say that this is a little bit aside, but our chair, Senator Sears, falls into the same category there, because I remember when we started dealing with marijuana, and he said, no way, no way. And in the end became a proponent, and I asked him why he changed his mind, and he said, because I listened and learned.
I believe his exact quote was, over my dead body.
Yes, well, it was something like that.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We see. Actually, I do have some questions, Mr. Richardson, or Judge Richardson.
Right.
You were here on two matters recently. One was on qualified immunity, and the other was on the covenants bill, which you helped draft, as I understand it. But I'm particularly concerned with your views on law enforcement. As the Burlington City Attorney, obviously the city of Burlington has been mired in a number of different issues regarding law enforcement, both behavior of officers as well as the inability to hire a chief, the problems that they've encountered with resignations and so forth, and your opposition to the elimination of qualified immunity. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about your views on law enforcement and how you as a judge would approach some of those issues coming before you.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I'd go back to my testimony about qualified immunity, and I think if you look carefully, I was very narrow in my comments about qualified immunity, and I actually did not weigh in on some of the bigger concepts of qualified immunity. Very much it was focused on the practical impacts. And one of the things that I have done as city attorney is to try to promote a conversation and dialogue within the city, within the different factions that I would characterize of the city as regards police and police oversight and citizen oversight of policing. And I have tried to foster a dialogue in that respect. And, you know, I think what it comes to is that we have a system of police and police oversight that is somewhat of an older system, in that it reflects in many ways more of the Teddy Roosevelt version of police oversight, which is trying to avoid corruption and trying to separate police function from political process. And what that's done is that's created a system in some ways that does effectuate that goal. But it also isolates police from some of the civil discourse that is going on in our society right now. And that's created a gap. And so I think there are many ways in which, from a policy point of view, we can approach that. You know, my comments to this committee were very much focused on what I felt were points of the bill that went too far, that created sort of a different system for police, especially I think the example I had given was the icy road and shutting it down, and the potential for liability in making a tough decision like that. But as far as, you know, the police are one part and an important part of our civil society, and they have a changing role. And as a judge, you know, I would view police, in depending on the context, or a police-related issue, you know, with the same frame of view and lens that I would any other issue, which is to say, you know, we start with the statutes, we start with the law, and what role does is the issue before us fall into. I would not consider myself someone who would simply take as given any particular posture towards any group, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be any other organization, but I would follow very much the statutory language. So, for example, if qualified immunity in the future was repealed, that is the law, and that is a decision that this legislature is fully vested and able to make. And so, in an issue like that, you know, I would render decisions consistent with the law, or look to do that. And so, in that respect, you know, I believe that if you look at my testimony, it's very much focused on my role right here today as an advocate, or was focused on my role as an advocate as a city attorney, but does not necessarily represent the realm of possibility as these conversations go forward. And I think my record also shows that I have tried to move those conversations along to address those issues in other forms.
Thank you. Other questions for Judge Richardson?
I have just one.
Yes, Senator Nick.
I'm not sure where you'll be assigned first. Do you know?
I do not know. Well, I've heard say from Judge Zone that it's probably the Northeast Kingdom, which in some ways is a return to my prior practice, because I had a lot of clients in the Northeast Kingdom years ago. So I'm used to that territory.
I see.
I was going to say, I come before you as probably one of the few people to have tried a full trial case up in Essex County.
I'm also wondering what area of the three courts, family or criminal or civil, which area do you think you'll have the biggest learning curve?
I suspect, and I've started to talk with other judges, that some of the criminal procedure that I have not been doing on a day-to-day basis is where I'll have this sort of initial learning curve. I've started to have conversations with judges and asked for recommendations about how to get up to speed on issues such as warrants or relief from abuse orders, some of the constitutional issues, to make sure I'm fully up to speed on those for suppression motions and such.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Actually, Dan, as somebody who has tried many cases in Essex County, I'll have to point out the one time at the end of a voir dire, I had an interesting incident. At the end of all of my questioning during voir dire, I always ask the jury pool, is there anybody here that has any questions? This is your one chance to get a free answer from a lawyer. And they all laugh, etc. In Essex County, the little old man stood up and said, Mr. Bennon, when are you going to shut up and sit down? I love Essex County. I hope you have a great time there.
I do too. And I've gotten that same response. I was at a town meeting in Victory, and they asked me about the role of oaths in town office, and I was not prepared for the answer, and I sort of juggled my words a little bit too much, and they told me to sit down because I did not seem to have a grasp of Vermont law.
Well, hopefully you know where Calais is. All right. Other questions for the judge? Judge Richardson, thank you for being with us. And the committee will probably.
You want to do it right now?
Well, I wondered if Senator Ruth would be available.
Yeah, so just.
Kind of like him to vote.
Yeah.
It's his district. So I think we can wait till tomorrow.
Okay.
Hopefully, I'll speak to Bill sometime.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay.
I'll send him a text and let him know that we hope he'll be available to vote tomorrow morning. All right.